Hi. So yeah, you see the topic. AI, especially in fanfiction. Obviously, AI is a huge, massive topic, and obviously, I'm not even gonna attempt covering everything. So I just wanna talk about it in fanfic specifically. And like the final nail in this coffin that I decided that I would actually talk about it a bit was I think yesterday or a day before when I actually checked if there is maybe a way for me to filter them out. And even the search engine decided that, oh, I just mean that I want to make it. And then I see the dozens upon dozens of AI fanfiction generators, and then that's when the real despair set in. Like even the search engine thinks that anyone who would even think about the topic wants to do it themselves instead of just getting them out of their sight altogether. So yeah, obviously, as probably many people, I've been reading fanfics quite a lot over. I mean, obviously, I don't exactly know the date when I read the first one, but it's been definitely over a decade and a half, I guess, at this point. Just to see what other people come up with, and then obviously there are the stories that you want to get either more of, or in a different way, or if when there's something that bothers you, and then you think to yourself, okay, that probably bothered other people as well, and they may have had a creative outlet for their ideas and desires that they wanna see uh actualized in some ways. And obviously, out of those fanfics, some of them were great. There are those whose authors eventually became published authors as well with their own stories, and then they kind of use it as some sort of practice, I suppose. So obviously, those were usually pretty great. And then there are those that have some good ideas, but obviously can't necessarily entirely execute on them fully, which is obviously perfectly fine. And I suppose the whole purpose of this entire fanfiction thing is that you don't have to be like an actual published author, or you don't need to pursue that as like a full-time thing. It's just you have something that came up in your head, and you just put it down and you share it with other people, and it doesn't have to be held to the same standards as published books, I suppose. And obviously, there were those who were just, yeah, interesting to say the least. And yeah, I finished reading a lot of them, and then there are obviously even more that I did not finish, either because I lost interest or forgot about them, or in many cases it just never gets finished for one reason or another. And then obviously you think to yourself like, oh, I hope they are doing okay. I hope that they just didn't finish it because they just didn't want to, or they just decided to leave it at that. Yeah. So that's how it is. And obviously it doesn't mean that it was not worth the time to read just because something is not finished. Like there are many wonderful fan fictions that just never got to end, and you get as much as you get, and then they can be still wonderful. And obviously, this whole thing is sort of a gray area. People can write their own stories, ideas. They have a creative outlet for those with characters that they do not own the rights to. But if the right holders just come up and say them, hey, stop doing that. Yeah, they pretty much have to. And and people not making money off of these fan fictions it's doing a lot of work uh, on right holders and lawyers and whatnot not coming up and knocking on the door. because it doesn't cut into the pie of the actual right holders. It's not taking away money in any way. I guess even then, if the right holder comes up and says like, oh yay, for some reason, people are not reading my stuff because they are reading your stuff, even though I'm the right holder for the IP. Then I think, and I'm not 100% sure on that, but I think it's very likely that they would just have to be like, okay, yeah, I'll stop doing it. But the moment that this stops being the case, and obviously that the door or a window, I suppose, has been opened quite some time ago. When people decide through Patreon or whatever else platform or way to make some money of their fan fictions. It's it's under I think it undermines that wall that we have in a way protecting fan fiction land to be in peace. But at the same time, it's a it's a bit hard to just come out and say to people like, hey, you should just work for free, because obviously that doesn't feel right. But the reality of it is still that the characters are being held, the rights for those characters are being held by someone else. So if you make money, and the more people who make money off of that, the higher the chance it gets that eventually the actual right holders are gonna be like, hey, wait a second, you have some money there, you're making some money there off of our property, and you should probably stop that, or we would want that money. And I do not think that that would be on like a case by case basis. Like, I don't think that they would go one by one to like the individual okay, the two is not mutually exclusive, but I don't think it would be stopping at just going after whoever the individuals are who are making money, or where exactly the tipping point is. Because you could say like, okay, multi-million-dollar company or billion-dollar company, I don't know, do they really care if someone makes, I don't know, $10 a week off of making fanfiction? But I don't know how much the entirety of it adds up, and where is the tipping point where it would be too much, and then this sort of safe haven would be taken away or pulled apart. So yeah, and obviously, yes, someone who has been enjoying fanfiction, and I suppose entirely as a reader, so maybe that is an aspect that I can't really talk to, or can't really talk about. Or maybe you could say that I should not talk as a freeloader of sorts, enjoying the work of other people for free. But yeah, like there is no reason that is free, or that should kind of be free. Otherwise, a lot of the defenses are falling away. And now finally, after all the preamble, I'm gonna get to the heart of the matter, because as you can probably imagine, and you probably see it, that with this window open, with money in the game, that there is obviously an incentive to get in on that, and not just to get in on that, but obviously to maximize efficiency, to put in the least amount of effort for the most output, more output, more money, more Patreon, more chances that someone decides to fork out that extra $1 or $2, or I don't know how much, for an advanced chapter, or 2 advanced chapters, or 10 or 20 or 50. Because that's another issue, right? Like, if you have tiny effort for huge output, then you can afford to have huge advances or advanced chapters, and then obviously the quality is gonna be another issue that I'm gonna get to in just a little bit. But yeah, output. There are people, there are writers who just who can just write a lot without taking uh, the opportunity to use any sort of AI assistance, if to put it mildly. They just write a lot. It happens. There are fiction writers like that, but I do believe that is by far the minority. And many accounts that have huge amounts of output, and then obviously they have ways to monetize that output, because like that's the whole point why they are doing it. It's crazy. So like you if you've read stuff like that, then you probably know when you see that writer in quotation marks, that they pump out like 5, 6, 10, I don't know how many different fan fictions, and they pump out the updates like together, even like not even necessarily trying to bother to hide their tracks. They just put it up in like the same window. They might even have it automated, might even have it, and they're just gonna put it up in a certain time. And yeah, it's so bad. It's and it's choking out the actual, presumably, because many times I'm not even getting to the actual writers when I just have AI fanfic upon AI fanfic and obviously I'm just gonna get fed up and I'm just gonna peace out of there. And there are those when someone puts some amount of effort after getting the AI output, they get it, and then they do some more work on it. They iterate on it, and then they make it a bit more coherent. But in the end, it's either just another fan fiction, like made by an actual person, and then they put it through the AI blender, and then you read a little bit into it, and then you realize like, oh, wait a second, I feel like I have read this one before, and then you realize, though, this is just a recycled fanfic from I don't know how many years ago, like an actually good one in most cases, because like you would rather blend the good food, and then you put it through the AI blender, or they put it through obviously as the AI blender. And then obviously it loses coherence, and then things stop making sense, and then something happens, and then something happens again. And then there are like not necessarily everything is obvious to the same extent, like there are sometimes fics that where you have to read a bit into it, and then like, okay, there are the telltale signs, but especially when someone actually wants to try to find something interesting or intriguing, you could push down one or two signs, maybe sometimes, when like, okay, I'm kind of feeling the vibe, but I'm gonna give it a bit of an extra shot. I'm gonna read a little bit more, because like obviously there's the cadence, the whole telltale signs of AI text. And then some people actually make some editing after that, even to the extent when you're wondering if they wouldn't just be better off making just an actual fanfic by themselves at that point. But then still they might be able to make one, but they can't make by themselves necessarily, or most likely, the sheer amount of output, the sheer amount of fan fictions, just by themselves, because it's just too much work. When you actually have to think about things, you actually have to come up come up with the lines and the words and everything by yourself, obviously that is a lot harder, and it takes more time, takes more effort. And now we come obviously again to the quantity, that the sheer quantity of these texts. I don't exactly know how I should call it, but it pushes out and dwarfs out the real people who are writing. And then also it can probably, I say probably because I'm, like I said, I have not written, I'm just a reader. But as a writer, it's probably quite discouraging as well to see your text like choked out by just all the different quotes that the same AI text has on it. There is like a reasonably intriguing or interesting or unique premise, and then you get a bit into it and like that's, oh, it's just more of the same, bit different, but it's still just not coming from an actual person. So obviously, as it's pretty disappointing, pretty discouraging as a writer and as a reader. So yeah, and I would personally much rather read anything, like even if it's bad, even if it doesn't quite make much sense, but it still came from a thinking mind. Yeah, it's hard to really put it into words, the things that are lost by something being made by, just random words being thrown together, even if they quite resemble actual actual proper sentences, but there's no thought behind them, there's no soul behind them. I don't know. And yeah, it's it it's making me sick. And yeah, it's not unique to this. There are many creative outlets and spaces that are being, you know lauded with this. Or I guess I would be hard pressed to find some that is not flooded by this. And yeah, but I mean, I'm not expecting to be able to stop people doing it. I don't think that anyone who's doing this and pushing these AI fix out would really care much about the danger that it poses to either, the, I suppose, motivation of people who would just like to share their ideas, or the actual threat, I suppose, that this poses to fanfiction as a whole. I don't know if there is really a way to enforce something where it's like you have to put a tag, at least, it's made with AI or by I suppose. But then you could so that is that tag, I suppose, not necessarily in here in fanfiction, but or like pictures, or I guess art in general. You could say like, oh, it's AI assisted, but then I'm pretty sure that would just make uh some huge bracket where, if you're like, oh, I just made these lines, or I don't know, colored it in with AI, but then on the other side, it's just entirely made by that, and you just put in the prompt. And obviously there are some people who say like, oh, that the prompt is still it still counts as effort. And like, that's yeah, that debate is not something that I would like to get into at this time. But yeah, it's really it's long and rambling again, and basically just the short of it is just, lots of AI fanfics, and obviously they are making it for money, and then getting money for fanfics is bad for, for the safety of this gray area where fanfictions operate. And yeah, it sucks. It sucks that there's so much AI slop in there. It sucks that it chokes out people who would actually just want to share what they thought out. And it just sucks all around. It and yeah, in the end, I do think that most people notice that it's AI, or at least I hope. I hope that that's the case. But some people don't, and not necessarily everyone has to be that keyed in or that tuned into what is and what isn't that. Especially the better and better it gets, and the harder and harder it is to distinguish. Because for now you can get it, or I mean you get it that it's actually made by person, made by AI, but most of them are not entirely 100% made by AI. There is a little bit of a editing and a little bit of correcting on top of it, and then who knows if there's a point when suddenly it's almost indistinguishable. And there you could make the argument, maybe, I don't know, I wouldn't make it, but just uh trying to also think about what would be the supporting argument for these, or if like if I as the reader cannot distinguish if it's AI or made by a human, then does it really matter that it was made by an AI? But I personally have no interest in AI art just altogether. I wanna see what people create, what people make out of their ideas and thoughts and lives. So yeah, altogether, if that was like big red button on everything, where I could just press it and then filter out everything AI, then I obviously would do that. But the main trick, I suppose, or the main reason that people would ever give AI fanfics money through either Patreon or other sources is that they are misled into thinking that it's an actual fanfic. And that some people could come and say like, no, I actually want to see what other people write with AI, and I can't really say that they shouldn't have that want, or they shouldn't want that. I mean, I think that they shouldn't, but obviously everyone is their own decision maker. But I personally do not care about what AI writes and draws and creates, again in quotation mark. And I would just like to have separation from it at the very least, because even if in some perspective it is just inevitable, and it's gonna happen whether we like it or not. I would not like it to happen. I would not like it to choke out all the art. So yeah, that's it. Pretty sad, pretty depressing topic overall. And there's just this one aspect of it. obviously it's there in every aspect altogether. So yeah, that's that. Yeah, bye.